Hello and welcome to IAMC Radio and Podcast. Today we're going to explore the top news headlines for April 2nd.
Sounds good.
We've got a lot to cover. Everything from international finance and energy to healthcare and, unfortunately, even some global conflicts.
Yeah, there's a lot happening today.
Let's just jump right in.
Okay.
Start off in Argentina. President Javier Milei is in the U.S.
He is. And expected to meet with President Trump.
Right.
Argentina is looking for a pretty big loan from the IMF. A $20 billion loan.
$20 billion? That's a lot of money.
Yeah, it is, especially considering they already owe the IMF $44 billion.
Wow. Yeah, that does raise some questions about their economic stability if they need another $20 billion on top of the $44 they already owe.
Definitely.
It's interesting, though, because both President Milei and President Trump are scheduled to receive awards for their conservative values at Mar-a-Lago.
I did see that. It seems to point to a pretty strong ideological alignment between the two.
For sure. So going back to Argentina's debt, why are they asking for this loan now?
Well, since President Milei took office in December 2023, he's implemented some pretty strict austerity measures.
Austerity measures?
Yeah, basically policies to cut government spending and try to get the budget under control.
Okay, I see.
And while these measures seem to have helped slow down the rate of inflation in Argentina, they haven't really led to people spending more.
Huh.
So this $20 billion loan could be an attempt to give their financial situation a boost. But of course, this has sparked concerns about a possible devaluation of the Argentine peso.
Makes sense.
But President Milei has publicly denied that that will happen.
We'll see.
We will.
Shifting gears to Nigeria now, President Bola Tinubu has completely reshuffled the leadership at the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited.
He has. He dissolved the entire board and put in a whole new team. Big shakeup.
Huge changes.
Yeah, the former group CEO, Milei, and the board chairman, Chief Pius Akinilure, are both out.
Wow. Along with everyone else who was appointed to that board in November.
Every single one replaced.
So now Engineer Bashir Bayo Ojulari is the new group CEO, and Amadou Musakida is the new chairman. That's a massive shift.
It is.
I mean, President Tinubu has been very upfront about why he did this. He stressed that it's all about improving NNPCL's efficiency and attracting more investment in the oil and gas sector.
Makes sense.
He also wants to increase local participation and boost the overall economic growth of the country. And then there's his push to develop and diversify Nigeria's energy sources.
Yeah, especially focusing on gas.
Exactly. He's even specifically referenced the Petroleum Industry Act of 2021 to explain his actions. What exactly does that act say?
Well, it was passed back in 2021, and it's basically a really big overhaul of Nigeria's entire oil and gas industry. It gives the president a lot of power over the national oil company, like the power to appoint and remove board members. So essentially, President Tinubu's actions are totally legal under this act.
Okay, so he's operating within the law. But what's going to happen next?
Yeah. Well, the new board has been given a pretty big to-do list. One of the first things they have to do is a complete strategic review of all of NNPCL's assets.
All of them?
Both the ones they operate directly and the ones they're involved in through joint ventures with other companies. Sounds like they're going to be busy.
That's a huge task. I mean, the Tinubu administration has set some pretty ambitious goals for this sector, increasing investment to $30 billion by 2027, and then doubling that to $60 billion by 2030.
Right, and boosting oil production to 2 million barrels a day by 2027, and then 3 million by 2030.
Not to mention the targets for gas production, 8 billion cubic feet daily by 2027 and 10 billion by 2030. Those are some pretty big numbers.
They are ambitious. The government also wants to see a significant boost in the NNPCL's refining capacity. They want to get to 200,000 barrels a day by 2027 and then all the way up to 500,000 by 2030.
Wow. Accomplishing all of that is going to be a huge challenge for this new board. It's not just about the money, it's also about having a really good plan and being able to actually make it happen.
Absolutely. It will be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
Now let's move on to the UK, where there's been a pretty big story developing about alleged exam fraud involving a large number of Nigerian nurses.
It's a serious situation. Reports say that around 12,238 Nigerian nurses in the UK are facing disciplinary action over this.
And there could be even more.
Yeah.
The UK's Nursing and Midwifery Council, or NMC, which is the regulatory body for nurses, is investigating another 717 individuals.
Right. That brings the total to almost 2,000 nurses under scrutiny.
Wow.
The allegations are focused on a specific test center in Nigeria called UNIC in Ibadan, Oyo State.
So what exactly are they accused of doing?
Well, the NMC has flagged some irregularities in the computer-based test, or CBT, which is a mandatory exam for nurses trained outside of the UK who want to practice there.
So to be clear, this test is designed to make sure that nurses who train in other countries meet the same standards as nurses trained in the UK.
Exactly. It's about ensuring patient safety and maintaining a high level of care across the board.
So what kind of irregularities are we talking about?
The NMC has said that they noticed some anomalies in how quickly some of the candidates completed the CBT at this particular test center. Basically, they're concerned that some people may have cheated.
That's serious.
It is, and the consequences are pretty severe. Some of the nurses involved have already had their UK visas revoked and are facing deportation.
Right.
And the NMC has invalidated a bunch of CBT results, both where they suspect fraud and in some cases where they haven't made specific allegations yet. It's a very complicated situation.
It sounds like it.
The good news is that the NMC has offered everyone affected a free opportunity to retake the CBT through a different provider called Pearson VUE.
That's good.
Yeah. It's definitely a step in the right direction, but it's really important to understand that even if someone passes the retest, it doesn't mean that they'll automatically get back on the nursing register or that their application will be approved.
Right.
And anyone who's found to have cheated will have to go through a formal disciplinary hearing, which could lead to them being completely removed from the nursing register.
So their entire careers could be on the line.
Exactly. This whole situation also highlights the trend of Nigerian healthcare professionals going to work abroad.
Yeah.
The numbers are pretty staggering, actually. Over 15,000 Nigerian nurses and midwives left Nigeria last year, and over the past 3 years, that number jumps to 42,000.
Wow.
There are still a lot of Nigerian-trained nurses in the UK, over 13,000 as of August, but these fraud allegations could have really damaging effects on how those professionals are viewed internationally.
It's really unfortunate. Now, some sad news.
Yeah.
We're reporting the passing of legendary American actor Val Kilmer at the age of 65.
It's a big loss for the film industry. He was a truly iconic figure.
Pneumonia was the reported cause of death.
He had a history of health issues, of course.
Right, he fought and recovered from throat cancer back in 2014.
He did. But of course, he leaves behind an incredible legacy, so many memorable roles.
Absolutely. I mean, most people probably know him best as Iceman from Top Gun.
Right, or as Jim Morrison in The Doors.
And he was Batman in Batman Forever.
He was such a versatile actor. He could really bring so many different characters to life.
There was a documentary released about his life in 2021 just called Val. It was really fascinating.
It was. It gave a very personal and honest look at his life and the challenges he faced after his cancer treatment and tracheotomy.
I thought it was really moving that he was able to reprise his role as Iceman in the new Top Gun Maverick.
Me too. And the way they incorporated his real-life health issues into the character's storyline was really well done.
Yeah, very tasteful and respectful.
Val Kilmer once said that his life was magical, and he was involved in so many creative pursuits beyond just acting.
It's so sad to see him go. He leaves behind 2 children, Mercedes and Jack Kilmer. Shifting focus now to the ongoing conflict in Gaza, there are reports that Israel is escalating its ground offensive there.
Yeah, the situation is getting worse. It seems that Israel's goal is to gain control of about 25% of the Gaza Strip, including setting up a 1-kilometer buffer zone along the border.
And this operation, which has been going on since last October, involves demolition of homes and infrastructure. Israel claims it's all necessary for security reasons.
Right, they say they need to do this to eliminate threats.
But some people are really worried that this expansion is part of a larger plan to force the people of Gaza into Egypt.
That's a serious concern.
There's even speculation that this strategy might have had backing from the U.S. during the Trump administration.
It's hard to say for sure, but the latest Israeli assaults have been focused on Rafah, eastern Khan Yunis, and central Gaza. This has forced even more people to evacuate and seek shelter in the Al-Mawasi area, which is already incredibly overcrowded.
It's a humanitarian crisis.
Absolutely. And tragically, there are reports of an airstrike in Rafah that killed at least 15 Palestinians.
Just awful. To make matters even worse, Hamas has now declared a famine phase in Gaza. They blame Israel's blockade, which they say has been in effect since March 2nd, for cutting off vital supplies of food and medicine.
And the UN has actually challenged Israel's claims that enough aid is getting through. They've specifically pointed out that all the bakeries that were being supported by the World Food Program have had to shut down because they're running out of supplies.
So it really does seem like a desperate situation.
It does. And meanwhile, in the West Bank, Israeli forces have been carrying out raids.
Oh, no.
They've injured at least 1 Palestinian in Tulkarem and made a number of arrests.
It just feels like this conflict keeps escalating.
It does. Israel's defense minister has said that they've expanded their military actions to put pressure on Hamas to release the hostages they're holding and to ultimately dismantle the organization. But of course, that comes at a huge cost to civilian lives.
A terrible situation all around.
Yeah.
Back in Nigeria, there were reports of threats being made after the killings in Edo State.
Yeah, this is concerning.
A Nigerian police officer from Kaduna State, Hadina Hussaini Dantaki, has allegedly threatened reprisal attacks against Southerners living in the north.
This is really troubling, especially since it's coming from a law enforcement officer.
These threats were apparently made in a Facebook post, responding to the killing of 16 Northerners in Uromi, Edo State.
Dantaki allegedly said that action would be taken within a week.
Wow.
This post has drawn a lot of criticism, and the Facebook page has been locked since then.
The force public relations officer has acknowledged the situation and said they're taking it seriously.
Good.
It's also worth remembering that before this, another unidentified person from northern Nigeria issued a 48-hour ultimatum to President Tinubu and the Edo State governor, demanding that they find the people responsible for those killings. They threatened retaliatory attacks if that didn't happen.
It's a very tense situation.
14 suspects have been arrested in connection with the Uromi killings and transferred to Abuja for questioning. The victims were reportedly hunters from Kano State who were on their way to Salah celebrations when they were attacked.
Another tragic reminder of how fragile things are in some parts of Nigeria.
In Oyo State, there's been growing concern over the condition of many public primary schools. This is despite the fact that the state government allocated a large amount of money to education in the budget.
Yeah, it's pretty disheartening.
The government put 90.6 billion naira towards education in the 2024 budget.
That's on top of the 58 billion they allocated in 2023.
Right. Yet many schools are in really bad shape. Overcrowded classrooms, not enough desks, and in some cases, schools like St. Stephen Primary School in Arisa community are literally missing roofs.
That's awful.
A civic tech platform called Moneyting visited St. Stephen, and they said the conditions were shocking.
They're demanding to know what happened to all that money.
Right. They're calling for more transparency in how those funds are being used.
Makes sense. It's not enough to just allocate the money. You have to make sure it's being spent effectively and actually making a difference.
Exactly. Moneyting has also urged Governor C. Makina to fix these schools immediately. And the hashtag #FixOyoSchools is gaining a lot of traction online.
People are understandably upset. I mean, if the budget for education is going up, why aren't things getting better?
It's a good question. Finally, we're going to look at a planned protest in Nigeria. The Take It Back movement has announced a nationwide demonstration for April 7th, 2025.
They're protesting what they see as the government's crackdown on free speech and bad governance overall.
In Oyo State, the protest is scheduled to start at Iwo Road in Ibadan at 8:00 a.m.
Their main demand is for the government to repeal the Cybercrime Act. They say it's being used to stifle dissent and create a climate of fear.
The Take It Back movement was founded by Omail Sowore, and they have a history of speaking out against government policies that they see as restricting civil liberties.
They point to a number of incidents where people have been arrested and prosecuted for things they posted on social media as evidence of this crackdown.
One of the cases they highlight is that of TikToker Timothy Gabriel, who's known online as Tuma.
He was arrested for allegedly insulting the Inspector General of Police and the Lagos State governor. He ended up being detained for weeks.
This upcoming protest is likely to draw a lot of attention, and it will be interesting to see how the government responds.
Definitely. It looks like we've got a lot to keep an eye on in the coming days and weeks.
We've covered so much today, from the economic situation in Argentina, to the leadership changes in Nigeria's oil sector, to those troubling allegations against Nigerian nurses in the UK, to Val Kilmer's passing, to the escalating conflict in Gaza, to those threats in Nigeria, to the state of schools in Oyo State, and finally this planned protest against the government.
It's been a busy news day.
Thank you for listening to today's top news headlines on IAMC Radio and Podcast.
See you next time.